as we come closer to the new year, I thought it would be helpful to share with you 12 practical ways to tackle people-pleasing habits. So perhaps during the 12 days of Christmas, you could try each one. And if you're listening or watching this at a different time of year, I'm sure you'll still find it helpful. On a side note, if you head to my website, charlottebaileytherapies.com, at the end of this episode, you'll be able to access my free downloadable guide to refer to as you embark on making some of these changes. So I'll start by saying breaking free from people-pleasing habits and behaviours isn't about flipping a switch and suddenly being able to stop it and turning it off. It's firstly about getting curious. It's about observing yourself and asking, when is this habit showing up? Why is it harder to resist this habit in some situations than others? And how can I start making small changes, even if they feel uncomfortable at first? And as I share these 12 practical suggestions, think of them as ways to experiment and to find out more about yourself. It's not about doing them perfectly. It's more about using them to get curious about your own people-pleasing ways. As you try them, notice how they feel. Was it easier or harder than expected? What situations made it feel impossible? Did it make you feel anxious or maybe even empowered? And what emotions come up when you try something new? Each one you try is an opportunity to learn about yourself and learn about the factors that make people-pleasing harder or easier for you to break. So before we get straight into it, I just want to remind you that people-pleasing isn't some sort of fixed personality trait. People-pleasing behaviours are learned habits, often rooted in deeper patterns like a fear of rejection, wanting to avoid conflict, or feeling like your worth depends on being liked or needed. And the process of changing these behaviours isn't about achieving some sort of instant change. It's more about looking at the small steps that add up over time. And please know it's okay if some of my suggestions feel too hard to try. Everything that you try out is information. Nothing's a failure. Everything's giving you more information that you can use to learn what is manageable and where is a good place to start for you. Everybody's different. So here are the 12 practical steps that you can start implementing changes in your daily life and day-to-day experiences. And the first one is stop moving out of everyone's way. I'm smiling because this is something like can really resonate with like former people pleaser me. It's deceptively simple but powerful, this one. So if you're walking in the street or walking through a supermarket, notice that urge that you have to move out of someone else's way as they head towards you. See if you can test out not being the one that instantly moves out of the way. And yes, you probably will find it a little bit awkward. But ask yourself as you do it, what comes up for me when I do this? Maybe it's anxiety, feeling like it's your responsibility to move. You have to be the one that moves. Or perhaps you notice yourself over apologising, or maybe you realise it's easier than expected. Either way, it's a chance to observe your response without judgment. You're just collecting that information about how things feel for you and what you might struggle with more than others. Number 2 is express a preference. So if someone asks you what you'd like to eat, maybe, what you'd like to drink, if you go around someone's house, try saying something other than, I don't mind whatever you're having. You don't need to be overly specific if that feels too hard. Even something like saying, oh, I'd love a hot drink is a great first step. Just notice how it feels to not say, I don't mind, and to express what you might want. Does it make you feel nervous in the moment, or does it not feel so bad? Is it just this habit, an automatic response that you can easily start working towards breaking? Does it maybe give you a little bit of a confidence boost if you are able to express? Practice observing. Number 3 is sending a message without rechecking and rewriting it 10 times or however many times you normally do. So next time you're writing an email or maybe sending a text or a WhatsApp, resist that urge to overthink or rewrite it. Just send it as it is and observe your feelings afterwards. Did you feel anxious doing it, or was it a relief not to spend extra time trying to perfect it? If it feels too hard to send without checking it at all, which I realise is quite unrealistic sometimes, just try and reduce the amount of times you'd check it, and maybe start with things that don't feel like really important. So for example, an email to a colleague on the same level as you rather than a director of a company might be a good place to start. And notice if you had the urge to reread it after you'd sent it, or if you could just leave it be and forget about it. All information. Number 4 is let them come to you. When you organise or make plans with friends, Do you have a habit of being the one who offers to travel to them? Maybe it's quite out your way. Or perhaps you go along with whatever plans are suggested, saying, "I don't mind, I'm easy." See how it feels to ask your friends maybe to come to you, or to even meet in the middle if it feels too hard to get them to come to you, or perhaps suggest somewhere different to what's been suggested, and just notice again how that feels, what makes it difficult, what makes it easier, just observing all the time whether or not you can break that habit that you might be into. Number 5 is delegating or relinquishing some responsibility. So maybe you're the default parent or the responsible one of the household. It's always you that's remembering to do stuff or keeping on top of things. See if you can choose one thing to delegate, whether it be someone else loading the dishwasher or doing the shopping list, regardless of how much part of you still wants to do it, because then you'll know it'll be done right. See if you're able to practice sitting with the discomfort of asking for something and for someone to do something and not getting involved. Number 6 is check your sorries. Start paying attention to how often you say sorry. Ask yourself, was an apology actually necessary here? Would I be expecting someone else to apologise for this if they were in my shoes? For example, if someone bumps into you, is it you that's saying sorry to them? Or if you need help in a shop and assistance, are you apologising for that? If someone's holding a door open for you, maybe you could try thanking them instead of saying sorry. Thank you for waiting can be just as polite as an apology, and it feels a lot more empowering. Notice how many times you might be saying sorry throughout the day as well, and in what situations and who it's with and what triggers it. All about increasing your awareness, even if you start getting annoyed at yourself, as I remember doing when I first noticed how much I was apologising for stuff that I didn't even need to be apologising for. It was just so ingrained in me. Oh, number 7 is resisting cleaning before guests come over. This one's for you if you feel the need to clean your entire house before visitors arrive, including the skirting boards maybe. Next time, try leaving things just as they are, especially if how it isn't actually bothering you. Just pay attention to how you feel when your space isn't perhaps perfect before other people come round. And if you feel able to practice this, just notice how it feels. Do you feel a sense of embarrassment, or is it really hard to resist saying excuse the mess even though it's not that messy? Or maybe you realise it's actually freeing not to put on a show. And if you can't even imagine not cleaning before people come round, just see if you can reduce how much cleaning you do. That might be a good starting point for you. Number 8 is slowing down at the till. So when you're at the supermarket till or self-checkout, there's a queue behind you. Try and resist the urge to rush. Take your time. Notice the pressure you feel to hurry up and where that pressure comes from. Is it self-imposed? What happens when you intentionally slow down? Do you start apologising? Do you feel embarrassed or like you're being difficult? Just observe what comes up for you and just see if you're able to like consciously take your time a bit more. And I don't mean like you have to be deliberately really slow, although you could test that out and just see what happens. But just noticing that pressure you feel within yourself to hurry up and to apologise, and just see if you can change that. Number 9 is avoiding the awkward walk jog. So an example of this is if someone stops to let you cross the road, or if someone holds a door open for you, try and resist the urge to rush to get there or to apologise unnecessarily. Walk at your normal pace and say thank you instead of sorry. And again, it's about noticing, how does that feel? Does it feel really awkward? Does it not? It's all information. Number 10, so this is if you drive really, stop yielding when it's your right of way. If you're driving, notice how often you give up your right of way unnecessarily. What's stopping you from just driving along without letting everyone out? This one might feel small, but it can reveal quite a bit about your people-pleasing habits and when they tend to show up for you. Doesn't mean you can't ever let anyone out of a junction or into your lane, but just practice noticing how often you give way to others when you don't actually have to, and just see if you can resist the urge. Maybe you're in a rush doing the school run or trying to get to work and you notice that you're still stopping to let people out because you feel bad for them, see how it feels not to. It doesn't mean that you're going to start turning into a bad or mean person. It's just for the purposes of trying to break some of these habits and to notice and observe how it feels for you to do that and how it shows up for you. See if maybe you can do it a bit less. That's a good starting point. Number 11, don't apologise for other people's mistakes. If you've ordered food that isn't quite right, let the waiter know without saying sorry. Or maybe you've noticed something wrong with something you've bought and you've got to go and take it back. See if you can do it without apologising for the mistakes that you've spotted, but that aren't your mistakes. You've got nothing to say sorry for, you know? You're not being mean, you're not being bad, you're just pointing out that there's been an error and there's been a mistake made, and you don't need to say sorry for that. Number 12, this might be a less common one, I'm not sure, but just notice if it's something that resonates with you, and is don't feel obligated to buy something. You're at a market or you're in a small shop, the owner's there or the person selling something stood there, and you can feel a bit awkward, you're trying to look at stuff, but then there's like this maybe internal pressure more than pressure from the actual seller of feeling like you've got to like buy something because they're looking at you or they try and catch your eye. Just notice whether you're feeling that pressure to buy something out of politeness rather than wanting to. This can be a great opportunity to just observe how your need to people please might extend to strangers and notice how it feels to not buy something if they catch your eye. Less about breaking a habit and more about introducing one, and that is to celebrate your wins. Every time you try out or practice one of these things, even if it doesn't go as you wanted, acknowledge it. Change happens in these small moments, and over time they really add up. Start noting things down. Really good strategy anyway is to increase your awareness is to note these things down that you're noticing, and as you embark on trying out these 12 different things, really make sure you record your observations, where it feels more difficult for you. What are you learning every time that you're doing these things? Just make a note of it. Even if it's just a note on your phone, you don't have to wait until you've got a certain notebook to start recording these things. Just making a note on your phone and you can just reflect back, notice the patterns, notice the themes, and it's really helpful then for when you do want to start implementing more permanent changes and implementing new habits. It can be really helpful to reflect back and notice what's been most difficult, what's been least difficult, and where might be best for you to start small and build your way up. So as you've listened to these things, I just want you to reflect if there's anything that stood out for you. Maybe you've noticed which one feels doable right now, or maybe you've noticed which one feels too hard and why. Are there specific people, places or situations that you know will make it easier or harder for you to practice some of these steps? And even if something feels impossible today, that's absolutely fine, it's okay. Use it as information gathering exercise. The more you understand about your people pleasing habits, the more power you have to shift them. And remember, people pleasing is a learned habit. It's not an unchangeable part of who you are. It can change, things can be different. With practice, reflection, and self-compassion, you can start showing up more authentically and start living your life more like you want to. And if you'd like a free guide with all 12 of these strategies laid out for you, you can download it from our website, charlottebaileytherapies.com. And then you've got it there as a handy reminder for whenever you need it and to refer to and maybe make notes on. And then it's a reminder of what you can do to help chip away at these really ingrained habits and start making changes. Thank you so much for listening or watching if you're on YouTube. And if you found this helpful or interesting, feel free to like and share. It really does help the podcast. And if you want to get in touch with me, you can on Instagram or you can comment on YouTube and I'll reply. Thanks again, and I'll see you soon.